I think I've got my power presentation. Everybody see that?
Yep, looks great.
So the name of my talk is My Journey with Iphoneography. And so let's get started on my trip. I had a lot of stops and starts along the way on this journey. And I thought I'd just have you hold any questions that you might have until the end. And then I'd be happy to take some questions. And then if you have other questions, you can also email me. So I put my email address there. At the end of my talk, I have a list of all of the different apps and software that for my phone that I made a list of. So if you have your phone, you could take a snapshot of it, and then you'd have all that information. Also, I understand it will be recorded, so you can also refer to that. So all of the images that I showed tonight, I took with my iPhone, except for there might be a very few exceptions, which I would point out to you. So I'm not seeing why my presentation is not advancing. Okay, there it goes. Okay, my first class and only class that I took in Iphoneography was quite a long time ago from a woman named Gail Pierce, who is very enthusiastic about Iphoneography, and she really got me started, and so I really appreciate her. So I'm going to cover some of the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. And I mostly learned just by trial and error and putting myself on an adventure. The apps and phones are constantly changing all the time. And this is one of the images that I took a long time ago, and this app doesn't exist anymore. So you do have to be prepared that your phone or your app or both might not talk to each other anymore. So I got started really serious about Iphoneography when I couldn't use my hand. I had the Viking disease and I had to have surgery. And of course I'm right-handed. And so I could use my phone. And so I got sort of interested in taking pictures of hands. Other people's hands besides mine was kind of scary. So some of the tips that I'm going to give will work for any smartphone, but mine is an iPhone. So I encourage people, if you don't have an iPhone, to read your user manual, because there's a lot of hidden tips and tricks in there that aren't completely obvious. And I didn't do this at first, so of course it took me a lot longer to learn some of this stuff. Some of the advantages are that you always have your phone with you, pretty much, and it's lightweight, it's travel friendly. You can use it to document things like x-rays for my hand, passports, and I store mine, all my iPhone pictures on the cloud, so when I open them, they open full size, but otherwise they are compressed, so I can it doesn't use up all of my memory. And Gail, my first teacher, said she blew up and printed some just gorgeous pictures, and I haven't tried that, printing my images yet. I don't feel like I have one that's quite ready for printing yet. So when you take a photo with your smartphone, you want to touch the subject on the screen and then swipe up and down to get the right exposure. And that way you're talking to your camera and letting it know what you're seeing. I was assigned by the Rotary Club to go to an event and document the giving of dictionaries to all of the second graders. And it was in this really dark gymnasium, and I had my big Canon with me, but I just couldn't seem to get the settings right for the conditions. quick enough. And so I got out and took a couple of shots with my iPhone just in case my camera pictures didn't turn out. And this was the best of all of the pictures that I took, and it was with my iPhone. So, and this was my first win in the club with a iPhone picture. So I was in Bangkok, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to climb up all these very tall steps with all my camera gear. So I took my iPhone and I got quite a few good pictures there. Here's the lenses that I have on my iPhone XS, which I graduated recently too from my 5S. So there's some technical information. The face recognition does not work with a mask on. That's a problem. So how do you move images from your smartphone to your laptop? There are a number of different ways to do it, which I listed here: the iCloud, AirDrop, sync manually. But ones that I use most are just to upload on, whoops, I don't know how I go backwards. Oh well. So taking picture with the iPhone, there are different settings. There's photo, there's flash, there's live view, there's time lapse, and then there's all of these other modes that you can use to take a picture, similar to my Fuji actually, which is my other camera. One of the disadvantages of using your iPhone is that it uses up your battery a lot. And if you want to also rely on it as a phone, you have to kind of guard against that. So I've found that having a pocket battery as a backup is a good idea if you're going to be taking a lot of pictures. Some of the extra equipment you can get, small tripod, came with a shutter release that requires Bluetooth. So the Bluetooth operations is a little sketchy. I haven't really used the add-on lenses all that much, but the tripod I have used quite a bit. So, and here are two images that I took of the same flower, one with my tripod on and one just taking a picture of it. And so they're fairly similar, but I do think the tripod gives you an advantage. Here's a picture of the tripod where I was taking some flower pictures that I had frozen in ice. And this is the picture that I got from that. And I also got this one. This one I was used a black and white setting on my camera to take a picture of this flower in a noir mode, and then I processed in Snapseed. This I just put in there because I really like the colors that the iPhone has. That's one of the things I liked about my Canon and my Fuji, is that both have really good color. So I think it does a pretty good job. One thing I really like about the iPhone is taking pictures from the air. I think the iPhone does a really good job. It's awfully awkward to get out a big lens when you're flying, and I always like to get a window seat. So here's one of looking down at Venice from the air. This brown ribbon, I think, is the Snake River. This was some fog going over Thailand, but you could see the air was having a smog alert. There's coast over Los Angeles and the Alps. So the iPhone also has a live view setting where you take a few seconds of video, and I'm not going to go into much detail on this because there's a lot of really good tutorials on iPhoneLife.com, and so that's a good resource for you. They also have a daily tip on the phone, not always about photography, but useful nonetheless. So the smartphone camera has all these different modes. I'm also not going to go over all of these with you, but it does allow you to mark your screen if you want to for a presentation. I didn't do too much of that here though. One setting that I discovered was the portrait setting. My phone went to the portrait setting by accident, and I took this picture of the apple blossoms, and I thought, oh well, let me see what it looks like, and I cropped it close, and I kind of liked how it came out, and then I put a Painterly app on it, and I kind of liked it, and I ran into it a few months later, and I decided to enter it in the competition under creative, and actually it won first place. So I like using my iPhone to take panos. It's really easy. You just slide your setting to pano, and then I hold the camera really still braced against me, and then just swivel my body in a horizontal from left to right. And so here's some of the panos I got. This one is from a tower, Castella Doria in Cinque Terre. This one is in horrible light conditions, but I was still able to get a picture. I just wanted to show how many people had shown up for this town hall on the Affordable Care Act. And this is a pano in Thailand of this amazing place that had many, many Buddhas, and I managed to get at least 17 of them in my picture here. You can also take a vertical pano. The redwood tree is in my front yard, and standing where I'm taking the picture, I can only see half of the tree. But when I took the picture, I got somehow magically the whole tree. The bougainvillea on the right-hand side is 2 stories tall. That's why I used the pano. I just thought I'd include a couple of nighttime pictures to show you what it does in the evening light. This one probably could have benefited from a tripod because it's not all that sharp, but I still like it. This picture is I shot from a moving bus in DC, and there were a lot of reflections off the window and lights and so forth, and it had terrible denoise, but I thought I'd make a good example on a nighttime picture. I did denoise it in Photoshop the best that I could, but didn't come out that well. But I've since discovered that there are denoise programs for your smartphone. Finding all these pictures for my presentation was a chore because I hadn't created a lot of albums, so I thought I would include that encouragement to the rest of you to be a little more better organized than I was. So I ended up doing searches to find some of the pictures, and I searched for roses and then statues, and I was amazed that I was able to tell statues from faces, and it gave me the pictures all the way back to 2013. I discovered this one I'd totally forgotten about, which I really enjoy this picture. The iPhone has a setting for slow motion pictures, but I had already, before I discovered that, started using an app called Blendio, which I like. And this is just me rolling the yoga ball across the floor and snapping a picture. Here's another one, blurred image, and another one with Blendio. This one I took a Blendio image and I processed it in Photoshop, and I also processed it in an app, Snapseed, and they came out so similar. I was kind of surprised about that. So basically with your iPhone, it's recording information, and then you kind of create your vision through software in post-processing like you do. So one of my favorite of all my apps is a Snapseed, just because it does such a lot of things that are helpful in post-processing. The iPhone has its own little editing system that allows you to have auto adjustments or cropping, adjusting sliders of various kinds, and add a vignette. But there are things that you can do in Snapseed, so I usually just go to Snapseed. And when I first started using it, I saw all of these wonderful icons that are all of the different things that you can do with Snapseed. And I didn't know I could scroll down and get 2 more rows that you can see on the right. So you have to keep strolling. So when you're exporting images, you can mail them to yourself, you can message, you can put them in Instagram. Others, I can even upload them to my SmugMug site online. I usually save a copy in Snapseed because that for one preserves your original image, but also it makes it easier to find your pictures after you've worked on them. Because if you want to work on them in Snapseed as well as other different applications, when you save them, they automatically go to recent, so it's easier to find them. So that's something I had to learn. When you're using tools in Snapseed, when you want to save a setting, you can check the check mark on the right. But if you don't like it and you want to revert back a step, you can just check the X on the left and it will go back. And if you want to see, you just touch the screen, it will toggle between your before and after, help you decide. There's an undo also, and if you click on undo, it will take you to view edits. And let's see, I'm having trouble because all these pictures are blocking my view. There we go. So view edit shows me all the different things that I adjusted on this particular image. And if I click on any one of them, a blue box comes out and I can readjust that level without touching the rest, or I can delete just that one or adjust it. So it's handy to know that. The Snapseed has a healing tool, which I probably depend on way too much, but I like it. I can't stand the wires. I've tried to embrace them, Tricia, but I haven't been able to. So it's easy to get rid of these wires with the healing tool. This job in healing was a little tougher because there was a lot of background that I wanted to remove and just have the colors. So I did a pretty good job, but I noticed that I left one spot in the middle that I should have deleted. And it's hard to see these things on the smaller screen. So a lot of these images can benefit from being put on a larger screen, either an iPad or your laptop to edit. The details tool in Snapseed has 2 settings, structure and sharpen. I use both on this old wood to bring out the wood grain. It also has an expand tool, a frames tool, and adding text. I discovered the expand tool when I was wanting to add a little more space behind this duck. And because I took the picture too far to the right. So I moved the expand tool to the left to include that white space behind the duck. And then I clicked on Smart and it filled it all in. So I have more space behind the duck. You can use these frames and expand tools to make different cards, which came in handy during the time of COVID when we couldn't all go to the store and buy gift cards and so forth. This one is a picture that I almost deleted from my phone as not worthy of keeping until I realized that it was a picture of an albino redwood that my grandson had very carefully taken me off of a trail to look at. And so I wanted to describe it better so I would be less apt to delete it by accident. So I turned it into a postcard. So you can select different, well, I moved too quick. Maybe I need to move along anyway. There's a lot of different options with filters, such as grunge and vintage, which I used on this shed. You can, not only do you have the filter, but you can adjust the different strength and the saturation of the different filters, as well as a variety of presets. Glamour Glow is another filter that works pretty much the same way. Speaking to Becky about nature and iPhones, it's hard to get a picture of a butterfly or a bird or anything like that with an iPhone. This is a bad picture, although I got myself in there taking the picture. But I found out that the iPhone really is an advantage when you're in a nature center that has glass in front of everything, because the glass gives you a lot of reflections. So some of these aquarium pictures came out better with my iPhone than with my camera, actually. This is the turkey that chased me down the road. It does a pretty good job with close-up. And this is showing the depth of field that you get. This is during the super bloom. And I was on a walk and I didn't have my camera, but I was really glad that I had my iPhone because I really enjoyed watching this. Never seen this before, a poppy popping for the first time. Usually they're either open or they're closed. So one tool that I use in Snapseed a lot are the selective brushes, because you have so much control. And there's 4 different ones: dodge and burn, exposure, temperature, and saturation. Here's an example of where I used a selective brush to bring out some of the detail in these ducklings. And here's a list of all the different steps that I went through to alter that image. You can use the text tool in Snapseed to put your name on your image, or most people want to put their actual signature. And I haven't done that, but there is an app for that. It's called A+ Signature. I'm going to talk a little bit about monochrome, since you're probably all interested in with Tim's presentation coming up shortly. So I included that. There are monochrome settings on your iPhone, but there are also adjustments in Snapseed. Here's one that it has different presets, but you can also adjust those presets with sliders. There's a couple others that I did, black and white images. Here's one where I converted it to black and white, used some brushes and expanded the frame and came up with this image. There's also a camera that you can get for your iPhone called Pro app, and it allows you to make monochrome images right from your camera, and they're uncompressed and high quality images. There's another tool in Snapseed called Tonal Contrast that allows you to protect your highs and lows while you're making adjustments. And I was trying to bring out some of the detail in these foreground rocks using tonal contrast. The perspective tool works really good in Snapseed. I adjusted this picture and then I added filters using the drama and the HDR filters. This is a picture in Thailand of a bus station, and I thought it would be a good example for using the perspective tool. You just, I used it freely, and you can pull it and stretch it in any direction. And then I used curves, another tool in Snapseed, to adjust the exposure. And there are many different presets for curves, as well as you're able to adjust them just using those white dots and moving them around. And this is the image that I came up with at the end. And I still, even though curves, I think it's a little bit overexposed, but took this picture of an old car going down the street in Sebastopol, and but it looked really crazy with the brand new bike lanes and so forth in this old car. So I used a vintage filter in Snapseed to change this, as well as a vintage looking frame. It's another one that has, it's monochrome, but it has a slight purple tint to it. Snapseed has a way to make montages by using a double exposure tool. And it allows you to select different blend modes, as well as the opacity of the different modes. So here's one that I took. I got a new light table, thanks to Linda Stuber. And so I took some pictures, some paper, and it reminded me of a desert. And so I took a picture of a silhouette. It's actually a shadow. And I used the expand tool to make it, change it from a vertical to a horizontal. And then I used a double exposure to blend them together. Then I used a Retrolux filter tool and came up with this, and the final image looked like that. Just playing and practicing. So this is another example of double exposure where I just took a picture of ice and I duplicated it and then turned it to black and white, and then I merged them together to for a little more dramatic effect. It's another example of double exposure where I had used another app to make it look like watercolor and then blended it with a background. Came up with that. So that's Snapseed, highly recommend it. There's a camera app that you can get that turns your iPhone into a kaleidoscope. And my grandkids really enjoy this one. And this is a couple of pictures that I got with my laptop keyboard that I took, and that's what it looked like. And here's one with a flower and some leaves turned into that. Just kind of fun to play with. One of my favorite apps is the Artista Imprezo app, and it describes itself as being for professional photographers and artists of all skill levels. So, whoops. When I practiced this, I was using different. Now I think I got it to go back. There we go. Okay, this is just a snapshot that I got from Sebastopol of the hills in the distance. And in Artista Imprezo, there's two different modes that you can go to that give you different options thereafter. One of them is alla prima and the other is in plein air. So here are the two, and you see at the bottom that there are different choices at the bottom. So in this case, I chose plein air, and it gives you, in addition to a prefix, it gives you the options of adjusting the brush size, the brush depth, color, and also the size of the frame around it. Then it also gives you a choice of artistic finish, and this is just adding another layer behind your picture. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. It also allows you to select part of the image and add detail. So I wanted to add detail in the trees in the background and the foreground roses. So you can select them by putting the center dot, white dot, in the middle of where you want it to be, and then stretching it using these other dots to select the right area, and then you just say to apply the detail. And this is the image that I came up with. So this is what I was talking about before, the different artistic finishes you can do. And I think these would probably not be allowed in our competitions because everything has to be your own. But it was instructive to me to look at the various ones that they had and experiment with them in collecting my own background. Here's one of my neighbor's roses, all with this same app, marigolds. Just some of the different images I came up with using this particular app. Another one is Automaton app. It's a motion painter. It's an artificial intelligence program, and when you turn it on, you see your photograph being painted in different media. It's pretty interesting. It has oil, sketch, watercolors, and pastels. Lots of fun. Here are some of them that I got in the various different modes. This one's oil, sketching, colored pencil, another colored pencil. This one's a watercolor one. This is pastel. And this one does a sketch and a watercolor. And that's what I used on this yellow orchid picture. And just by happenstance, I clicked on this one icon. I didn't know what it did. And it plays a video of it painting, or you can stop the action and make the brush strokes yourself. And that's how I made this picture, which was really fun. Here's another one, my grandson with his cat. This app is Mokuhanga, which is named after a Japanese technique for woodcuts. And it gives kind of an impressionistic look to your photography. Here's one of the Laguna. The mannequin, we all like those. A couple other examples. This one I used the sketch mode on Automaton app before I put it into Mokuhanga. There's another Mokuhanga image. I watched a tutorial or a webinar by somebody, and they were using the Waterload app, and so I've been trying that, and I came up with these images. But they all kind of have the same feel to me, and there's not a lot of way to alter the image to go with yours. So I tried hard though, and I came up with this one. I had to do so much work on it that I feel like it looks overworked to me. But it's just one of the ways that I go about my iPhoneography is just to try different things. I never know how I'm going to come out, what I'm going to come up with, but somehow I feel freer to be more creative with my iPhone because it's quicker and easier, and I feel like I'm learning how all these things work, so that when I do get to my Photoshop and my Fuji images and so forth, I have a lot more background to go on. So here's a sample of the same image with a lot of these different apps. And you can see there's quite a variety. And the more I work with the different apps, the more I become familiar with what effect I might get with others. I talked a little bit about in Snapseed that you could make montages with their program, but I really feel like I have more control over my pictures in Image Blender. Here is one that two images that I combined in Image Blender. One was the birds in a plain sky, and then going over the Richmond Bridge at sunrise. And so when I blended them together, I got this image. This is an image. I kind of broke a rule. You're not supposed to put something, your subject smack dab in the middle of the picture, but I did it anyway, and I like this flower, but it needed something, so I put this colorful picture of the Quarry Hill gift shop in the background. Here's one I took, old fireworks, not this year, but that's supposed to be our PG&E company. Here's one where I adjusted a landscape picture of the lane that I walk down frequently, and a picture of that road, all the pavement, and I used the pavement as a background image, and came up with this abstract. This Buddha head was a drive-by. I only got one chance to shoot it out the window of the car, and I had taken a picture that same day of some butterflies from an escalator, and I combined them together to get this image. And this one I did touch it up in Photoshop. It's really hard to see small details on the phone, and I've gotten a habit of really blowing up the image on the phone so I can see all those details, which works pretty well, but sometimes you just miss something. So I did use Photoshop on this one. This is another use of Image Blender. I took this picture of this barn across the street, and there was this boat sticker on the dumpster of the bakery across the street, and I combined them together to get this image. And you can see that the pink color bled a little bit, and that's what I've been talking about, that you really sometimes need to go into Photoshop to clean up some of these little edges. This is a Black Lives Matter montage that I made using Image Blender. I took a picture of the street with pano and then cropped it, and then I took another picture of some chalk art that was nearby, and I blended them together. This is where I took a background and a pier that I had put into Mokohanga to combine them to get Point Reyes Pier. And I left the edges so you could see the different layers and what it did. This is another image blender thing where I like the colors in the Bliss statue and this old leaf, and to me, they had the same character of missing and transparency to be able to look through them. And so I combined them together, and then I wanted to integrate them further by using a filter in Snapseed called Grunge. And then I added a funky kind of a frame and the text at the bottom. This one I've been thinking about time and how warped it is in terms of COVID and staying home and not knowing what day it is. And so I took a picture of my clock and I found a background that I thought would work. And I had distorted it using the Armatron stop time thing to make time look crazy. And then I put them together in Image Blender, and that's how I got this image. This is just 2 images blended together of a marigold blossom from my garden. And this is an example of just mixing different apps together to get different effects. And this I used Image Blender, a landscape, and then my own background of just some colors. And I thought that was kind of fun. This one I used a charcoal drawing from Armatron of some mushrooms, and then I put it in Mokuhanga to give it a feeling of more of a woodcut. And you can also add paper texture in Mokuhanga. And then I put it in Snapseed to adjust it a little bit. And I came up with this picture. Here's another one, is Artista Imprezo. So I've just been having really a lot of fun with it, and I hope it stirs some curiosity for you to do more with your iPhone. This is an abstract that I made with Armatron, and then I put it in the watercolor and then into Snapseed to make fine-tuning adjustments. So as that's the end of my creative part. I was in the hospital and I had to come up with a gift, and I noticed that I had this app on my phone, Mosaic, and it allowed me in 30 minutes sitting in the hospital to pick out a bunch of pictures of my grandkids and order this little book for Tom for, I don't know, it was Father's Day or I don't know, his birthday or something. And so it comes out like this, and I thought the pictures came out pretty good. That was my only example that I have of printing my iPhone pictures. So Keynote kept wanting me to come up with a quote, so I came up with this one. I found I could say things with color and shapes that I couldn't say any other way. It's by Georgia O'Keeffe. So my journey has been one of the curiosity and exploring and trying to open myself up to seeing the world in new ways, and just learning and playing by trial and error. And this is a list of all of the different apps that I have mentioned throughout my talk, and if you took a snap of them, you would have them. So no need to write them down. I just want to thank everybody in the club for being there. It's just been a really exciting adventure from the day I joined the club, when Susan and Neil recommended the club to me, and then special kudos to Nancy Goodenough for holding my hand through this process. And of course, my best buddies, Liz and Tricia, who get me out taking pictures a lot. And I'm going to mention Chris Gondak because she doesn't need any of this. She gets amazing pictures right from her camera. She's never relied on anything. So kudos to her. When I was first in the club, my camera broke and I had to send it in. And Howard loaned me his camera, which was a much better, nicer camera than the one that I had. And that's the kind of kindness that you get from people in our club. Linda, she's not here tonight, but she's been a blessing to me and got me my light box, which I've been really enjoying since I can't leave the house very much. Tim, you are amazing at getting our exhibits together, and I've really enjoyed participating in the exhibits committee. Tricia and Joel, you rock when it comes to field trips. Thank you so much. And to all the members competing every month, I mean, to try to keep up with a Terry or a Marilyn is quite an incentive, and all of the rest of you, every one of you in the club. So keep competing and enjoying your photography. So my journey continues. Have you got any questions? I think I have to do something.
And it's
I do.
You can unmute yourself, people.
Okay. I have one question, Anne. I use Snapseed a little bit, nothing to the extent you have. Are you using your finger to do this, or are you using some kind of a tool to get detail?
A tool is, most pens, or a lot of new pens have a tip on them that you can use if your fingers are too big, but I use my finger.
Okay.
My fingers are small and I find it a lot easier, and I enjoy the tactileness of it, and it just somehow seems easier to me than putting an object in between.
Okay.
I have tried it at times, and especially if I'm typing or something, this works good. But really, it's the iPhone is designed to use your finger, and it works really well.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
None of you have big fingers.
And I just want to say how impressed I am with your conceptual abilities, how you put photos together and see them in your mind. Very impressed.
Oh, thank you, Terry. Oops, what have I done?
That was amazing.
Yeah, well done.
Every image is great.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I don't know how to get back to where I'm supposed to be.
You are there.
You're there, don't worry.
Here, gallery view.
You gotta do nothing else.
And your
Oh, there you are.
And I have a-
panoramics. Sorry, your panoramics were really cool. It's really tough to take a pano, especially with people that are moving around, and not have them look all weird and broken and stuff. So that's, you did a really good job.
Well, my
Ann,
secret is to keep my arms in and my phone really still, and then I just rotate my body. So I'm not moving the phone, because that's when I start jerking it. And
Hey,
it'll
Ann,
tell
when
you, it tells you when you're offline. It won't take any more out of your picture.
Ann, I have a question for you, and
Sure.
that is, would it be any easier to do them on a tablet than on a phone?
Hmm.
You know, I have an iPad and I could be using that, and it might for some people be a lot easier, but I have all my apps on my phone, and that's where I do all my work.
Yes, but all you need to do is, it's up on the cloud anyway, would be to bring it down and put it on your tablet.
That's right.
Maybe for working on them, but if you're gonna be taking photos, you know, it's a lot less bulk to have just your iPhone with you.
I agree, but I was just circling back to the point of, if you've got big fingers or you're clumsy, which I am, it just seemed to me I could have more real estate.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing it with my wounded hand. even when it was all wrapped up and everything, I could use my finger, my tip of my finger. So
And can I make a suggestion to you? You mentioned a couple of times a number of different methods of getting your photos from your phone to your computer and vice versa. There's an app called Photo Transfer App, and
oh, really?
it works on a Mac and an iPhone. I don't know about Android or Windows, but it's very easy to transfer from one to the other, and it takes a few seconds, and it's right there. You don't have to email it to yourself, and there's no maximum image size, and it's really great. I've been using it for like 4 or 5 years.
Thank you. That's good to know. I'll look that one up.
Yeah, I have it on my computer and on my iPhone.
And I've got 2 questions. One is that the apps, Snapseed, etc., can you use them on your desktop instead of your iPhone? And you might have answered this question, but I was doing something, cooking.
Oh. Well, what I do is I do everything on my iPhone. If there's a special image that I want to see bigger and really work on in more detail, I will put it on my laptop and then I'll use Photoshop.
And so Snapseed, etc., doesn't really work in the desktop environment?
I don't think so.
I haven't used it on the desktop. I've only used it on my phone or my iPad.
Got it. And the second question is, are you able to give us a PDF of your presentation?
A PDF?
Yes.
I probably could if I knew how to do that.
I got it.
Happy to.
Save as. Save
It's
as.
It's
PDF.
recording.
Yeah, it is
Okay, well,
recorded.
this is recording anyway. Want it be posted where everybody can
Yes.
get it?
Thanks, Bill. That's right. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm an
Yeah.
old man, you know.
And is Snapseed still free?
I believe so. All of the apps that I got were free that I used, with the exception of, the Artista one. It only gave me 4 or 5 brushes, and if I wanted the extra ones, I had to pay like 99 cents or something
That'll
to
keep
get that extra brush. And I'm not sure if that's every month or it's just a one-time fee, but I figured it would be worth it until I could finish this presentation. And then
I just
I'll probably
downloaded.
keep them because you get addicted,
Mm-hmm.
I just downloaded Snapseed for free on Android tonight.
Good.
I already had it. I've had it for years.
And that this was so interesting that right when you mentioned Snapseed, I picked up my phone and I downloaded it. And when you would say you were doing something, I was trying to get all the apps and do it with you as you were doing it. But I'm going to have to watch your whole presentation again to be able to really absorb it all. But it was fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there is a list of all the apps, so you could just look through that list and see which ones you wanted.
Amazing. Thanks a lot.
It's going to be fun.